Hello and welcome to the Paper Prototypes podcast. My name is Rex and I'm here with.
I'm Mickey. Hello. Thanks for having me.
And I'm here to talk
Happy to
about
be here.
her.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm here to talk about your
Okay.
game Research Story. So, Miki, why don't you tell me a little bit about it?
Okay. I think Research Story at a first glance it's just a cute little game. Another farming sim. I think recently there's been more and more farming sims which are great for the players. But I do try to make this game a little bit different in terms of its mechanics. So the focus is a lot on both the farming side as well as the creature taming or animal ranching side. Um, do I continue going? There's a lot that I try to do in the game. So I focus on the base management side, which is your farming and your caring for the creatures. There's also discovery uh, because the game research story, as the title suggests, is about research. So, for example, usually in farming games, there is you go to a general store and you buy your seeds so that you plant and grow your crops and then you harvest them. And I think this is a very basic gameplay loop. For research story, you don't actually go to a store to buy the seeds. You go exploring around the town for any flora that you come across. You pick them up and then you research them. And this involves things like observing them in different locations, for example, and then growing them. Um, Another thing is that when you grow the plant, there are many different uh, conditions that each plant requires. Some are more difficult to grow than others, and these things. This is just one of the examples of how I try to make the game a little different from your standard farming sim. Yeah, and of course there are things like different NPCs that you can meet, and you can go on little hangout events with them. So I try to cover the all the basis or all the expected mechanics in standard farming sim, but I make a little change for each kind, for each type of mechanic. Yeah.
And what is it that initially attracted you to the farming cozy game genre?
I think that's more of a personal preference because I love farming games as well. I mean, I love a lot of different games, but um, I think farming would probably be one of the my favorite genres. So I remember when I was a kid, I I love. I think I didn't have a lot of games to play with, but one of the games that I had my hands on was the um, Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town, and I love that game. So uh, I was really that's probably one of my first games as well, and I loved it. So as I continued growing older, I did try many different games and I enjoyed them. But then Stardew Valley came along as well. And I think there's a lot of different factors. So one of it is that I love farming games. Another part of me also feel like I could make a farming game if I wanted to. Um, Seeing the mechanics compared to, for example, uh, a 3D FPS. I think that's out of my skill range for for the moment. Yeah, so that sounds more difficult. So for me, I feel like maybe something like a pixel art top-down game sounds like something that I might be able to, and that's also why I started on making this game. Yeah.
So, how did you come up to go for a research angle on your farming game?
Right. Actually, I remember. uh not having a name for this game in the very early stages. So it's not as if when I was planning the game, I knew, you know, I wanted it to be focused on research. I actually started with I remember what I knew I wanted in this game was the the change in the mechanics that I mentioned. So like uh crops have their own conditions for growth, and then I also really wanted your creatures or your farm animals to follow you around, and also have their own set of conditions or traits that you have to take note of when playing. Um, and I wanted to take it for from more of a observation angle. So um usually when we do, I think, animal biology, a lot of things you have to first, of course, find out what animal it is, and then you have to observe its behavior. So I try to get a little bit of the essence in, and I think if it's animal biology is also a type of research, right? So I think it kind of just naturally fell into the research mechanic as well. And I remember one of my friends who helped me playtest my ideas and stuff. Uh, in the early days, she was mentioning how um, this research aspect of it could make my game different from other farming games, and I think that stuck. That stuck with me, and this is how it is farmed. Yeah.
Do you think it's important for your game to stand out from all the other farming games that are coming out?
Important. I think it is important. Although honestly, from what I've seen, each farming game is has its own unique take. So I think it's part of the trade as well. When you want to make a new game, a lot of times you bring your own views or your own experiences into the game, and unless you're copying a, an existing game exactly, you'll definitely have some ideas that are different that you try to bring into a game. And I think that's important because players will want to try new things, and that's what attracts them as well. So yeah, you wouldn't want to play the same experience over and over. So I think having some new mechanics or even settings or storylines would be very interesting for players as well.
And how did you decide all the different types of content that you wanted the players to research? Because I've been doing a lot of animal farming so far and researching the
Hmm.
crops, but I've noticed there's also minerals and fish tab as well.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. The type, do you mean like the specific animal, or do you mean the the category like plants and fish and animals?
Oh, I guess the categories.
Oh, the categories. So I think the first we had just the plants and animals at the start because that's also pretty um it is something that players are really familiar with in a farming sim because you grow crops and you ranch your animals. So those are I guess those are the important ones. And we actually had a demo about a year ago or so, or maybe a year and a half ago, where players requested for fishing. And I remember at that time, I did consider adding fishing to the game, and um, but it was also just it could just have been a side mechanic that isn't related to research. But I think some of my um, playtesters and players they were talking about how it could be related to research and how it fits into the game, and I agreed with them. So which is why I added a fish tab. as well. And I think those covers most of the animal and animal, yeah, and plant research. And you mentioned things like minerals and whatnot. And I think rather than letting the players do all the work, I also let the NPCs do some of the work so that uh, the archive or the world feels a bit more alive because you have so-called colleagues um, in your archive, the other researchers who have their own specializations like geology or mycology, um, even more fantasy things like astrology, these things that each of the NPCs study. And I think it's interesting for the players to learn about what uh, their other researchers study as well in that way. And I think this also keeps the scope more manageable for the game instead of having the player do cover all the ground. Yeah.
And what was the inspiration to have your setting be more fantastical? Because the first crop I started growing was just your standard potato, and then I found a cloudberry, and then a cat plant, and various other fantastical crops.
Right. So, I wanted the game to have to be in a fantasy setting. Uh, I at that point I was playing Dungeons and Dragons with my friends as well. So I that's probably part of the inspiration. I wanted elves and dwarves in my games. And it's I think it's also not so common in the farming sim, or at least at that point, like maybe two years ago. Most of the farming sims are more set in reality, where you go back to the countryside and all the animals and plants are real life animals and plants. And so in the fantasy setting, I have a lot more creativity or creative space to work with. I can make any animal I want, and I think it helps with the whole game because um for example, some of the fantasy crops like cloudberries, they have to be planted on a cloudy day, and I think that's not something you can get from a real plant. So I can be more flexible with the mechanics on how I want the the rules of the game to go. And I think that it's also cute that um the animals are fan fantasy animals. Some are real animals like chickens. And I think a lot of the players also love Sprout Kitten. And with these fantasy creatures, you can also give them interesting abilities. For example, the Sprout Kitten can help you grow your crop from a seed to a sprout if you when you're watering them. So that's these little details can only be made if the world is set in a fantasy setting. Yeah.
It certainly started encouraging me to take out animals for walks with me, which was nice
Yeah.
because I love reptiles. And when I got to the mossy reptile in the cave, I was like,
Right.
yes, I want him to follow me everywhere. He's my best friend.
And this, I love it when players find their favorite creatures. And yeah, I remember when I was adding the reptile, I'm like, yeah, I don't have a reptile in the game yet. I must add it. There are people who love reptiles. And yeah, there's a lot more surprises to come. There's quite a lot of animals to uh discover. Yeah. So so I hope there's an animal for every player. Yeah.
What's been your favorite animal or crop to make so far?
To make wow, that's difficult. There are so many. Um, hmm. I do like all of them. As a general answer, I do like all of them because um of how because the pixels just make them look very cute. So I really enjoy making them. For the favorite, uh, now I need to pull out my my assets so that I can see which what they are. Man, okay. Honestly, the first animal I added was the chicken, and it all started there. So I would say chicken because like it's like a very iconic thing in the farming game scene. So uh, I suppose almost all farming games have chickens, and players love them and I love them. So it's the first thing I added, and then it's also the first animal I added an ability to, so you can collect more seeds. So yeah, it's when it's I guess it's a prototype animal, and I love it. So yeah, it only just is like the how do I say it, like the um example of for the other animals to follow. Yeah.
How hard is it to write for such a diverse cast? Because I've there's various characters of genders, ethnicities, and even fantasy races. Although now that you mention D&D, some of the characters make more sense. Like there's a bird character, and I know exactly what D&D race it is. I just don't remember the name.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how difficult? I mean, it in some ways it gives them another side to write about. So, for example, if we're talking about mm, an elf, she can talk about where her elven kingdom is, and that just gives them more story to write about, and that helps. Um, and then th- there are also little dialogues, or more of the common dialogues, where, for example, the bird character can talk about how he's a bird. So it's like it it gives each of the NPCs very distinct features that you can tag on, which helps for writing. Overall, I don't think writing is really my strong suit. I am trying. So like it it helps that everything is in a fantasy setting. So uh, and okay, so that's one thing, and yet it has to be relatable to players. So there must be some realism in how each character has their own personalities and their likes and dislikes, and of course their stories, which tie to the main story of the game for some of the characters. And I think I do want to continue developing these dialogue and NPC side of the story because being an early access game is still in progress. Um, so and having this diverse cast, I actually think it makes it easier rather than more difficult to write. I think it's like what I said. It just gives more things to write about in the game. Yeah.
I noticed for a few of the NPCs, a lot of their outfits are very Eastern inspired. Was it important to have some Eastern influence as an Indonesian developer?
Oh, actually, I'm not from Indonesia. I'm from Singapore,
Ah,
which is, but
damn it!
it's
I got the
also
two confused.
it's okay. We're all from Southeast Asia though. So yes, it was important to me. I think it's important to have some representation in games. It does help, even though it doesn't sound like it's much, but as the player, when I see something that's familiar, it just gives me um I just feel more connection to the game, and it can be a small thing. And yeah, I guess as the game developer, I wanted to add that in for our players, and hopefully as we go along, if I can add maybe one or two more NPCs, I do hope to explore uh other other cultures as well. So for the Asian family, which is the folks from the general store, I remember when I was designing the general store, there was this painting. It was a very specific thing, but there's this painting in the store that I added that was in my old family home, which yeah, it's just a very small detail that uh I just added to the game, and it makes me happy as well.
Is it exciting that some players, not knowing that you being from Singapore, will be able to play your game and be like, "Hey, I'm there's some like of my culture in here."
Yeah, I think I'll love that. Uh, and I hope to do that for. I mean, I can. I'm very comfortable doing it for the Asian culture side of things. And I hope I can represent a few other cultures as well, if possible, or at least have the character in the game and have them be interesting characters. I think that's my minimal goal. But yes, I would love if players can play the game and then they can notice the small things that speaks to them. I think that would be great.
And how has it been trying to plan for player progression? Considering stuff
Hmm.
like Stardew Valley created foraging as a way to where if you don't have a lot of crops, you can go and forage and still spend some energy during the day. So how have you tried to balance out stuff like that?
Um, progression. Wait, you mean like Stardew Valley, the progression in the day itself, or the game as a whole?
A game as a whole, how it's like various systems help the player
Mm,
do more as they progress both as a farmer and their skills.
I see. Right. So I think so for Stardew they have something like skill points for each of the major mechanics. For example, farming or mining, you have skill points that increases. So that definitely gives a sense of progression. We don't really have that in Research Story. I think for the progression part of the game, I wanted to focus on two things. The first is the storyline. So there's a more I focus more on the story of the game. So essentially the you see all these various plants and creatures popping up, and you hear NPC saying that is actually um something like an anomaly, like why are is it popping up even though it hasn't in the years before. And that is also the reason why you came to Shimmerbrook to do research and explore this town. Um, and as you progress, you will find various puzzles and little cutscenes that will tell you more about this story. And that's definitely one way to progress through this main storyline. Another thing would be just it's a bit like a collectathon, so you can collect the animals and plants and fish, and you can get their research scrolls to submit in the archive, which is why we have something called the research rank, which um, increases as you play the game. So that's another form of the another way the players can set long-term goals, which uh, ties back to the progression. So I think the an interesting point I want to add is that these are very long-term goals. And while I was doing research about game development, one of the things that I read was that it's important to give players these kind of long-term, very big goals, and also or smaller goals that they can work towards day to day to keep them engaged, which I try to do. And I think it comes naturally in this genre that you want to farm and you want to collect your or hoard your different items, and those are also smaller goals that the players can do in a day, which is why I asked you that question at the start. Yeah, but the for the major or the large goals, I think those bring, like, both the small and the large goals adds to the feeling of progression for the player.
One of the big things that motivated me while I was playing was just throughout the weeks of spring, like caves started opening up with different mysteries. How did you
hmm
plan the various secrets for the players to discover?
Um, the secrets. So I like I mentioned a little bit about the storyline. So as you progress, you'll find different puzzles. Um, what I did, or when I was thinking about these puzzles, I tried to have them connected to both what the player is familiar with, which is being a plant and animal researcher, and also what the storyline is, which I won't talk too much about. But um, so for example, there'll be things that's related to your crops or your animals in the story. So it's not like um how do I say, it's usually sometimes if you think about uh, Z- Legend of Zelda games, their puzzles are more like separate because they have so many different mechanics. Like if I say Breath of the Wild, they have um they of course okay they do use the physics which is part of the mechanics of the game and the abilities of Link, but they also have some. I remember having some other a lot of different game modes that it just so many different game modes that you can experience through the puzzles. For us, the puzzles are a lot simpler and a lot more uh, a lot more directly connected to what the players are used to. Yeah. Um. And well, while I was making the story and the little secrets, I think it helps that there is this overarching story that I can always refer back to when I want to add something to the game. So that it's still, for example, it will have to give a sense of fantasy, which how do I say? So things like you can find little secrets, and those are also part of the story. Yeah. I hope I explained that.
I think you did
Okay.
great. Um,
Okay.
what ends up being coming first then? Because if you're writing a secret that uses an animal, do you end up writing like the story and then plan animals around it, or do you have
hmm
animals already written and try to fit them into the story? Like, what's the dynamic for how you write?
Um, Actually, it's a little bit of both. So it depends on um how the game or what state the game is at that point. I think while I was trying to build the game, there are so many different things I had to consider. So, but I try to build it in a way that is like, let's see, if I just group the core features of the game into animals, plants, NPCs, story, then I try to build each one like 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%. So I build it in tandem so that they all kind of have the same level of content at that point. So I do know some of the puzzles um had uh is like, let's say they require a few items. Some of the items already exist in the game, and some I only added after the puzzle, and because the puzzle inspired a few. other plants or animals. So I think it just is slowly grows as you build the game.
How did you determine the layout of the town as well as the overall map?
Mm, um, I first drew the map on a piece of paper so that it makes sense to me. It just it came like I just drew it and it if it makes sense to me, it kind of works. So for example, for the town itself, the tavern is in the center, and I thought that the tavern is something that is pretty important because it is one of the establishments that a lot of the NPCs will visit. So I put it in the center. Um, and on the other hand, the archive was more to the side, only because not as many NPCs will be visiting. Only the researchers will be visiting the archive most of the time. The blacksmith wouldn't be visiting the archive and he'll be in his shop. Yeah, so that's one of the considerations. Um, so I try to have the more uh, frequently visited establishments in the center, and then like the houses of the NPCs would be more around the corners of the map. That's how I went about it. And then for the whole map, I knew I wanted different, or at least slightly distinct areas of the map so that each plant and creature can appear in a certain area. So, for example, um, let's see, the wild violets can only appear in the woods, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, the woods. So there's an area for the woods, and there is like cliffside, the meadows. So these different areas um, will have their own plants and creatures that will appear in, and that's one of my considerations. And then I just link them all together. I don't think I really have a very structured way to go about it. So I just felt like, okay, it feels like this is right. Um, and I linked them together. Uh, and then the caves came in. I think the important thing about games like mine, which is something I'm still working on as well, even now, is to have variety for the players. So in terms of both the specific content for the creatures and plants, but also even in the map layout. Uh, Players want to discover and experience new things as they progress in the game. So I think the cave systems really help with that as well. So I try to add different layouts of the maps in the caves, or when you go mining, there's different layouts, and that I hope that that will give a fresh experience for the player when they play the game. Yeah.
How has the reception been so far since you released the game?
Mm. Actually, it's been great. I'm very happy with how it's going. I'm very thankful for all the players that have been playing my game and for the feedback that they have been giving and whatever bug reports that they've been reporting. Uh, those have been really encouraging, honestly. Um, at the start of the launch, it was pretty stressful because I didn't know how it was gonna go. It's my very first commercial game. Um, and I remember my fiance at the time, he asked me something like, "Oh, has anyone's computer exploded yet?" And I'm like, no." So I guess that's good. Yeah. So jokes like this. So it's a little bit of stress, but I'm very thankful that most of the players have been enjoying themselves and look forward to more on the future of the game, and that really encourages me to continue working on the game. And every comment or review I get, I read or I try to read them, and like even the negative reviews, they They give me a sense of what needs to be worked on. So those are, I mean, I would take them in seriously as well. So but overall, it's been good, and I'm very thankful that for that.
Why release the game on early access?
Mm, um, so I think there are a few reasons. So firstly, I think for a lot of early access games have this same reason as me, which is to get player feedback uh, from from the players, and when the game is still in development, so that they can shape how the game is going. Um, I mentioned just now that we had a demo about a year and a half ago, which actually helped shape where the game was going as well, which is in terms of the fishing update. So I knew I wanted to add fishing players. A lot of players wanted fishing in the game. Um, but instead of just another mechanic that's tacked onto the game, they suggested having it as a core part of the game related to research as well. And that was I might not have considered that if it wasn't for the players. So that definitely helped. And there were several other things that came with the feedback that I tried to implement, and those were great. And I enjoyed that process, and I knew that it helped to make the game better. And I wanted that in early access as well. I think that's also the goal of a lot of different EA games. And another reason is because it is my first commercial game, and I honestly didn't know where it was going to go. I wasn't know how well it was going to do, whether I can continue working on this game in the long run. So I thought that having it in early access can help to gauge the interest of the players as well, so that I can manage my timeline better. So like, do I want to throw another year into this game, or you know, um, because if I didn't do early access, I would be working on it without this gauge, and I wouldn't be very sure how much to put into the game. And I think this early access, this way to launch the game helps with that.
How nervous were you when you put out that initial demo?
Initial demo actually, compared to the early access launch, I think I didn't feel as nervous because I felt like it's a demo, and um it's it's something that I don't know. At that point, I felt like it's I wasn't sure what to expect because um it is the first time the public is trying to play my game, and it's also demo, which makes it a lot smaller and more contained. And we did play test the demo quite a bit, so I was quite sure that it was all okay, and I didn't feel that nervous. I think like it has been a long time, so I can't really remember. Um, I think it was more of I felt more excited probably because it's something that I would be able to gauge interest and how the players like the game from there. Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. I'm glad that early access has been helpful for you.
Yeah.
So,
Though,
oh, sorry,
yeah.
continue.
No, no. Okay, I was just gonna say the early access launch was definitely more nerve-wracking than the the demo launch, because at that point there was more expectations. I felt uh, there'll be higher expectations for the game because it's a more built game, and also because there are more players who know about the game at that point. So that was I was pretty nervous at that point.
So, what games have you been playing?
um okay. a lot of games. I really enjoy all types of games. Um, most recently, I've been playing Vermintide.
That's
um,
a change of pace.
yeah, yeah. I think I don't know. I'm not sure if um people will be shocked that I play these kind of games as well, but yeah, it's just a way to relax and I enjoy all kinds. So recently there's been Vermintide. For me, that's like a bit like I can play it while not thinking about anything. Just hit and slash. Yeah. Um and then a bit before that it's I did play a bit of Overwatch, um which I enjoyed. The One of the games that I keep going back to is Minecraft. It's one of my favorite games of all time. So I love building in that game. And actually, its crafting system also inspired a bit of my game's crafting system, where you add um, different items into the boxes to craft the game, to craft the item. Yeah, so Minecraft is also one of my favorites. And I think it's releasing an update soon, so I might go back to that. So yeah, I try to play the different games and rotate through my games when I have time. Yeah.
I've been waiting for the new update because me and my girlfriend wanted to start a new world, but we're waiting because they're adding like cherry trees, which we think is going to
Right.
be really nice.
Yes, I agree. It's just coming out in 1 or 2 days, 2 days,
But
right?
is it really?
And it's pretty. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's is it 7 June if I'm not wrong.
Well, shit, that means I'm actually going to play it soon then.
Yeah.
I love crafting games in general. I don't know, there's just something about um having like the whole world open up to me that I could do what I want. That's just really relaxing to me.
Yeah, I agree.
But I
And
totally get. Hmm?
discovering the different items and I think it's a form of progression itself.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
Um, but I totally get Vermintide being a relaxing game because sometimes when I'm really like tired, I'm like, all right, time to relax. I'm gonna boot up Mordhau, which is like a medieval combat simulator, which most
Uh-huh.
people would not find very relaxing.
Uh-huh, I see. Yeah, I mean, I think the variety in games that we play, it just makes it enjoyable. So I mean, there are players who, who only or who loves a certain genre, which is understandable. But at least for me, I do enjoy playing a wide variety of games.
Have you been playing Vermintide 1 or 2?
I think it's two.
Mm, I,
The
I, I got 2 because it was free and I haven't installed it or played it yet.
I think I got it because it was free too. Yeah.
What's been your favorite class so far?
Um, Probably the Carillion, which is the elf bow class. Yeah. Uh, Although I love the character interactions in the game as well. Like the dwarf is called Bardin and he sings a lot and I love it.
It seems
So cute.
one of the big themes in the games you're playing is a lot of fantasy.
Hmm. I never thought of it myself, but maybe it could it could be something. Um, yeah. Previously I have tried a lot of different other games. I think all the more common how to say the commonly played games like Don't Starve, which is which I guess is also kind of like a survival crafting game.
I would
Um,
consider it in that genre, yeah.
mm, so those are really enjoyable as well. But sometimes I think as you get to the end game, you for at least for me, I would it's like, oh, I kind of completed a game and then I move on to the next one. And then for things like I don't know, World War Z or Vermintide or Left 4 Dead, they can always come back after a while and replay the experience. That's for me. And Minecraft, of course. Yeah.
I there's a few games that are like that for me. Every once in a while, I'm like, okay, I'll just do like a new thing of RimWorld, and that's all I will play for 2 weeks, and then I'll never touch it again.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, same.
That or I really
But
enjoy city builders as well. That's a fun genre to
uh,
experiment in.
mm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't played much city builders myself, although it's such a booming genre on Steam.
Yeah, I'm
I
surprised.
should
It
try.
at least felt like at one point it was only SimCity, and then it went to City Skylines, and now there's Banished, and there's a new one called Ixiom, which is like a story-based sci-fi one, and there's a whole bunch that are coming out.
Wow.
If you're really into cute animals, there's one called Timberborn, and the whole thing is you play
Oh,
as beavers who are building little
right,
wooden settlements, and you have to like dam up
right.
the water to protect it from drying out.
That sounds really cute. I think I've seen maybe seen it the marketing for it once or twice. But yeah, I think that's one of the games that caught my interest because you play as a beaver, and yeah,
I played it
maybe I'll start from there.
I played it right when it came out, and it didn't feel like there was a much going on. But it's in early
Uh-huh.
access, and so it's been like at least a year, maybe two. So there's probably a ton of new content that's been added.
Okay, that's cool.
But it's also great to see all the crazy games that come out of early access. It's such a great program.
Right, right. I agree. I think a lot of times, or at least there's some players um who don't do or who don't play early access game, which I completely understand. And even for my game, I think in some ways it's great to have early access, and in others, a lot of players would wanna step in and have the full experience for the first time, which I understand as well because it's a bit harder, or in some ways, it's a bit hard to make something like a farming sim replayable as compared to, say, the um, oh, the genre. I can't remember what it's called. The the one where you repeat when you die. I can't
Oh,
remember what.
roguelikes?
Yes, correct. So like things like roguelikes, I think those are um it is more commonly seen as early access because it's like the base game and you always repeat the game already. So as the as the game grows, it's just more content and you get to play the same game over and over with more content. I think that works well with that genre. And for the farming sim genre, it's something that you invest at least for some players you invest in one save file for a long time, and then yeah, and so I mean in it's interesting to see in early access you would see different new mechanics added to the game. I think that's interesting as well, but a lot of players would want to have go into the game for the first time with all the available features, and that's very understandable as well. Yeah,
I know.
and hopefully, yeah.
The dev of Stardew Valley is really putting a lot of effort to try to, I guess, not fix that, but you have different maps that you can start on for the farm, like the farm
Mm-hmm.
layout's different, and that way you can kind of
Mm-hmm.
justify to yourself starting brand new because it's like, oh, if I'm gonna make a new farm, now I get to make like one that's like built on like multiple levels because it's in a mountain, or like I could do one entirely themed around fishing.
Right. Yeah, I think that's one way to go about it. Um, we'll call is a like Stardew is always something that I refer to if sometimes I get stuck on something. I'll be like, oh, how does Stardew do it? Do I want to add that to my game? Yeah. So, um, yeah, I think that is definitely one way to help. Um, where I was talking to my fiance the other day, and he was like, um, you could add like a new game plus to your game, where you start from, where when you start, you don't need to do all the grindy research, and you can just tame all you want and grow all you want. And I was like, oh, that sounds great as well. Maybe in the future we'll think about that. Yeah.
It could definitely at least be a setting, because I feel like some players, like some games, they give you so many settings to tweak the game exactly how you want it justifies coming back. Like,
Uh
I
huh.
love going to Project Zomboid, which is sort of a roguelike. And it has random characters and you generate them and it's got crafting and all that. But
Hmm.
sometimes I do a playthrough where the zombies don't respawn and I can clear it a whole time. Sometimes I do a playthrough where I get bit once and I instantly die because the infection gets me. And just changing little details like that, like it feels like a brand new game.
Oh, okay. So you can change these settings like from the game itself.
Oh
Is like a mode or.
yeah, so there's the standard one, which is like what the game recommends. But then you can go and create a custom sandbox so you can tweak all the details. So, like how fast the world erodes, how much different types of loot you find, whether the cars are unlocked with their keys in them, or whether they have gas in it. Like that's the level of degradation of the of the cars. Like
Oh, that's
there's
really specific.
you can even like the game does like the really slow shamblers, right? But you can tweak them and make them have like, oh, I want them to be blind and deaf, but if they see you, they're sprinters that do a ton of damage. So you can tweak them in
Oh,
any way you want, and it you can create all kinds of new games just by messing with those settings.
oh, yeah. I think those are, yeah, that sounds fun too. It sounds like adding modifiers to a game as well. Like I was just thinking about World War Z, where after you play the standard mission, you can play the challenges, which adds different modifiers to the game. Like the zombies are harder to kill, or the uh the elite zombies show up more often, things like that. I think it definitely gives the fresh feeling when you play through those games.
So I feel like settings like that in certain like especially like a farming, a survival game, could actually help a little bit. Like Minecraft lets you get a starting chest and a map now, because
Oh,
everyone's punched a tree 100 times to make a wooden pickaxe.
I see. I didn't know that. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah.
How did you like World War Z, by the way?
It's good. It grows on me. Um, it is fun. I enjoyed it. Yeah. Although I can say that for a lot of games, but yeah, it is something that I enjoyed as well. Yeah, the controls are smooth, and overall it's pretty satisfying to play each of the maps. And they have quite a number of maps as well.
They gave it away on Epic Games, so me and my friend we played through the whole thing. And I think I
Hmm.
asked him like 2 months ago. I was like, "Hey, do you remember anything about that game?" And he went, "No." I can't remember a single thing, but I do remember that there are so many zombies in that
Yeah,
game.
there are so many.
It is a technical marvel that that game actually runs.
Right, right.
But aside, I do not remember the plot or characters or anything.
I guess it's not really that focused on the plot. There is some like there's a reason why you're there and stuff, but for the bulk of the game, you're just shooting zombies.
It's also weird to me that they made it a game because I read the book and then they made a
Oh.
movie and I don't movies wasn't that great and then they made a video game based on the movie and not the book, so it's
Oh,
degrees removed and it just starts feeling really weird.
I see. I didn't know there was a book for the game.
Yeah, the
Oh, like it started from the book.
it's a completely different like the two have nothing to do with each other. Like the zombies in the book are your standard slow like zombies like the shamblers.
Uh-huh.
So it's It takes like days for the infection to spread. I don't know why the movie didn't just have a different name. They really are nothing alike.
I see.
But it's a fun game. I like seeing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I've also been playing have you ever heard of a game called you know what? I'm actually going to have to look it up. It's a bee farming game.
Oh,
Um
is it recent? Apico or Apico?
yeah, you know it. Okay.
Yeah,
I've been having a lot of fun with that. Have you seen it?
I've seen it, but I haven't tried it. Oh.
I don't know. I got stuck at one point because I don't know how to breed the different versions of bees, but I've been having fun
Mhm.
building my bee farm and building my house, and it's a cozy little game that if you like cute pixel art, you'll probably like that one too.
Yeah, I think the art is right up my alley. Like these kind of games, I just look at and it just looks so cute and fun for me. Yeah.
Do you like pixel art because it's cute, or do you just like pixel art in general?
Um, I realize that I tend to like top-down pixel art games. So, like, I loved Hyper Light Drifter
Oh
a lot.
yes.
Yeah, so that was really good. I enjoyed the game. I played through it, and then I didn't think much of it, but I realized that a lot of games that I really enjoy is top-down pixel art. I think it's just I I don't know what it is about it. So like if it's a 2D platformer pixel art, it doesn't have the same evoke the same feeling for me. Yeah.
Have you played Terraria before?
Yeah, I have. So I enjoyed it, but I feel like not as much as those in the 2D top down. But
Mm,
Terraria was fun. Yeah.
I thought that one would be up your alley with the pixel art and the. There's technically farming in it. It's more focused on boss fights, but
Yeah, yeah. It's fun to play with friends. Yeah, with a lot of friends, then it's like you can all tackle the boss together.
that's the only way I've ever gotten far in the game.
Right. Same.
I have to have my friends
Yeah.
carry me.
Yeah. Like, please bring all your gear over to my new world.
The other game that you mentioned that I wish I was better at, I always die so easily, is yeah, Don't Starve.
Right.
I get to like
I see.
day 15 and I just run out of food, or whenever they send the dogs after me, that's it. That's as far as I've gotten.
Yeah, I think that it also helps when you have many friends. I think to play with.
I brought
Because
my
when one
friends,
person
we all
dies,
died.
oh, I thought like when one person dies, the others can help to revive them. But yeah, sometimes it ends up in disaster. But yeah, mm, I think maybe a few more runs can help, but I'm not sure.
I think last time I played with my friend, same one that we did the World War Z run with, he was
Mhm.
supposed to revive me. He was about to starve, and I'm like, "You can do this." And he's just like, "No, I can't. I'm done with this game." And he starts lighting the whole base on fire.
Oh no.
I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "We're not. I'm not gonna survive this."
Yeah.
Oh, so that's my last memory of Don't Starve.
I see. I think definitely multiplayer games have this aspect to it that you can't find in single player where your friends do funny things. It's also a really enjoyable part of the game.
Or very frustrating when they ruin it all.
Yeah. I guess so. But I don't know. Sometimes my friends do that and when you think about it it's also hilarious. Like maybe after uh you grieved about your world, then it kind of looks funny.
We played Minecraft, and the same exact friend messed with me that
Uh-huh.
when I left my house and I came back, he had spawned so many chickens and made so much cake the whole server lagged.
Oh dear. Yeah, that's funny. But it sounds. not too malicious either. I think there is a fine line between like a prank and destroying someone's base. Did you manage to recover from the leg by killing the chickens?
I just killed enough, and he was like, "Do the chickens bother you?" I'm like, "You know what? I like chickens, so no." And I just had this whole field of like 100 chickens outside my base, and like I never needed to cook ever again because he made so many cakes.
Yeah. Wow.
He literally
Yeah.
spent a whole day gathering the materials to make like over 100 cakes.
Yeah, that invested.
So I do enjoy the wackiness that multiplayer games let you do.
Yeah.
What are some fun memories you have of multiplayer games?
When you're talking about Minecraft and how there was a lot of chickens in your base, I think the Mulder version was we just put torches everywhere in someone's base. Like it's just every inch of the base we can place a torch in. We just place a torch. Yeah.
Oh
And
no.
yeah. But I think that's a little easier to deal with. I'm not too sure because I'm not the one who got affected. But yeah.
It depends
Um
on how badly the frame rate drops to.
right, right. I think it was okay. Yeah, I think our pranks are usually smaller. I remember having another Minecraft server where everyone was pretty established already, so like you can do whatever. And I think it was a modded server, so there was this thing called it's like the pumpkin heads, but there's a lot of variations of it. And then I just started hiding one pumpkin in everyone's base, and I'm just waiting for them to find it. Yeah, I think that makes it fun. And it's like a harmless prank, but it's also fun to find at least one pumpkin. Sometimes I hide more.
Well, Miki, I think it's been a joy to talk to you. So, is there anything you want to shout out at the end of the podcast? Whether it's, someone shouted out a favorite pizza place, or do you stream or anything like that?
Um, no, I don't stream, but thank you very much for having me. That was really enjoyable. Like time just flew. um, Shout out. Uh, hmm. Well, I Minecraft. I love Minecraft.
All right, folks, you can
All
download
right.
Research Story at Steam on early access, and you can find the dev Miki at Twitter under Research Story as well, and you'll find the tags in the description down below. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.